Hello, this is my 35th speech. Today I'm going to be talking about Insurgent, which is the next book in the Divergent series. And then the next week I'll be talking about Allegiant. And lastly, I'll be talking about 4, which is the last book in the Divergent series. Before I begin, I remembered at the beginning of the week that I missed a very important part of my last speech, which is in the attack on Abnegation. Triss was, as you know, she was not under the simulation, but a lot of her friends were, so she encountered one of her friends while she was running away. His name is Will, one of her best friends, so she had to shoot him and kill him during the attack, which leads to a lot of complications in the next book, and she has a rough spot with one of her friends, and she has trouble holding a gun for a while. Also remember that this speech is going to be a long speech because there's a lot to cover in this book. There's a lot that goes on. There's so many things that you need to cover. So I don't cover everything, but I cover as many important events as possible. So with that being said, let's begin. Insurgent starts out with Triss on the train with everyone that made it on. If you recall, that's Caleb, Marcus, Tobias, and Triss. They are going towards Amity headquarters, and once they reach Amity headquarters, it is dark outside, and they have to talk to the representative of Amity, which is Joanna Reyes. In Amity, they don't have leaders like the other factions. They have a representative, and she is the representative of Amity. They go and talk to her to ask her if they can stay with them for a while until they can figure out where they can go and what they can do, because now they're fugitives of the city. She lets them stay the night, but she tells them that they have to consult with the rest of the Amity in the morning to ask them if they can stay or not. So the next morning, the Amity hold a meeting to ask everyone if the Dauntless and Abnegation can stay. In the meeting, Triss sees some of the Abnegation that made it during the attack that survived. There isn't many, but there is a few that made it. The Amity's way of voting is very different from the rest of the factions. So you have the representative, Joanna. She stands in the middle on a big tree stump, and tree roots all going throughout. And everyone else sits around it. She addresses the problem, and everyone else around talks about it amongst themselves. And then once they come to a conclusion, they go up to Joanna, tell her what they think, and then she will announce that to the rest of the group, what they have decided. So that it's a way of community and peace, and showing that they're all in this together and there isn't someone above the rest of them. I think it's quite cool. There's not really a sense of hierarchy in the system. Everyone is in it together. Once they come to an agreement, they go up to Joanna and tell her that they will allow them to stay on a few conditions. She names several of them, but the biggest one is no violence in the community, which, being Dauntless, for them, that can be quite difficult. If they have some differences with somebody, they usually address it by violence. But still, being with Amity, they have to be peaceful and respect the community. For Tobias, personally, for him, this is hard because he's not a very happy and kind person. He's kind of stern and serious. So it's hard for him to be super happy and joyful when everybody else is. For a few days, they were fine keeping peace until the day before they leave. Triss gets in an argument and a fight with Peter over a hard drive that she had acquired during the attack on Abnegation that has a bunch of the simulation data and other information on there. Peter went into her room, found it, and took it, and before he could leave, Triss entered the room, and that broke out into a big fight. Some of the Amity men found them fighting, and they took Triss away from Peter and took her into this room and gave her a mood serum, which helped her to calm down and to be little bit more rational. But they didn't take into consideration of her height, so they gave her too much, which this made Tobias angry and made him confront Joanna and ask her what the heck they gave her, because she was acting like she was loopy and she seemed drunk. And during that conversation, Tobias told Joanna that they would be staying one more day and then they would leave the first thing in the morning. Yeah, first thing in the morning after lunch. The next morning, Triss goes outside to the apple orchard. Also, remember, the serum took 5 hours to wear off of her because they gave her so much because they didn't take into consideration of her height. While Triss is in the apple orchard, she sees some trucks coming, and she's not sure what they are until they get a little bit closer, and then she can see that they are erudite trucks. Once she figures out what kind of trucks they are, she runs back to the cafeteria to warn everyone. This gives them time to dress as Amity and to proceed in a normally fashion. The erudite arrive, but Joanna tells them that they left early this morning and brought everyone with them. So this makes the Dauntless go search the premise and try to find them to see if they're still there. This gives Triss, Tobias, and everybody a chance to escape. But there are a few of the soldiers that stayed behind in the cafeteria to see if they're there or if they lied, which they did. One of the women went up to Tobias and pulled down the back of his shirt where his tattoo peeks over his shoulders. It goes like this, and there's a huge tattoo on the back. And when she does this, Tobias stands up and turns around and grabs her before she can even think. And then Tobias is standing there holding the woman, and then gunshots are going off all over the place. He yells for Triss to help him, because he's in a bit of a tricky situation. But with the attack on abnegation, when Triss shoots Will, she is still it's still a fresh memory, and it makes her dazed and confused, so she has a hard time responding after the gunshots go off. So she just sits there in her seat, dazed and not able to respond. Finally, she does. She tries to help Tobias, and they dart out of the cafeteria. But before they do, someone shoots a gun at the person in front of Triss, so she leaps forward to save the person, only to find out that it was Peter. She admits that she felt guilty for it, like she did not want to save Peter, but she did. They run as fast as they can to the train, but only Caleb, Tobias, Triss, and one of their abnegation friends, Susan, make it onto the train. Once they're on the train, Tobias yells at Triss for not helping out, because she just sat there when he needed as much help as he could. So they get into kind of an argument, and then almost immediately after they get on the train, they are confronted and surrounded by a bunch of Factionless members. One of them is Edward. He was the #1 Dauntless Initiate during the training, but he quit because Peter stabbed him in the eye with a knife, a butter knife. So he joined the Factionless and now is standing in the train with a bunch of his fellow members. And Tobias recognizes Edward as well, and they start to fight for a minute, but then Tobias tells them who he is, so they let them stay on the train and take all of them to the Factionless compound, where they meet his mother, Evelyn. And Evelyn confronts Tobias of what she is planning to do. She is planning an attack on Erudite, who they hate very much, especially Evelyn. But Tobias tells her he'll think about it and decide what he wants to do. The next day, the Dauntless go to Candor, which is where the rest of the Dauntless are, the good Dauntless. The other half of the Dauntless went to Erudite, and they all wear blue wristbands to show that they are traitors of their faction. When they arrive, they are arrested and held as criminals. The leader of Candor tells them that they are criminals, and they show them some footage of during the attack when Triss woke Tobias up from the simulation. They took the hard drive and ran, so they think that they're criminals now. And they have to prove their innocence by having the truth serum tested with them. And if you don't know what the truth serum is, it's a huge syringe, very long needle, I think it's like that long. They put it into your neck and ask you a number of questions. If you resist to answer the questions, the truth serum becomes more painful, so it's just easier for you to say the truth instead of holding it back. This is what all of the Candor go through during their initiation. I think it's the last and final test they have to do, is they have to do the truth serum and answer a bunch of personal questions. Tobias goes first, and then Triss goes. During Tobias's turn, he has to admit a lot of personal questions to prove that he is trustworthy and innocent towards the Candor. During the truth serum, he says that he left abnegation to get away from his father. This leads to some teasing by other Candor members because he looks like he's a coward for leaving his father by going to Dauntless. Then it's Triss's turn to go, and she has to admit that she shot and killed Will. This leads to some tension between her and Christina is Will's girlfriend, so that makes her really angry at Triss, and she has a lot of differences toward her now, but they were good friends, so it's really hard for Triss to comprehend all of this. And then it also leads to some tension between her and Tobias because she kept this big secret from him and never told him until they had to take the truth serum. This secret leads to more tension through the book with Triss and Tobias, and because of this tension, I didn't want to read the book because I was just like, just please make up about it. But it took forever for them to make up and finally forgive each other and just move on. The erudite attack Candor to find divergence. During the attack, they shoot everyone with these little balls. They're like this big, like a BB pellet. And in the balls is a serum, but the Divergent are resistant to it. It basically puts them under a simulation, but the Divergents are able to wake up from it, unlike everybody else. Of the people that attack is Eric. He is one of Triss's instructors and now a traitor. They gather up all of the Dauntless in a room, and they're given instructions to bring back one person for testing and kill everyone else. They end up killing one boy, and then by that time the rest of the good Dauntless get there and fight them off and help them. So now with this happening and a bunch of other things that have been happening with the erudite against the Candor, the Dauntless see that it is not safe in Candor anymore and they need to leave. So they decide that all of the Dauntless go back to the Dauntless compound to make it their home again and to find some peace during all of this. Not long after, Janine, the leader of erudite, activates 3 people that were shot by the balls and put them under a sim to kill themselves unless they give over a Divergent that she can test on. Only one person dies, but this person is a friend of Triss, and her name is Marlene, who also is Uriah's girlfriend, which is also Triss's friend. Triss decides that she's going to end the suicides and go to erudite. Tobias, though, makes her promise not to go. She promises not to go, but she does anyways. For a week, she is tested on by Janine, but Janine cannot keep her in an effective simulation. One of the simulations that she puts her through is she is in her cell, and Tobias comes to get her. One thing I really thought was super interesting was when he helped her get up, he grabbed her right arm, and that was the arm she was shot in, her right shoulder. So she said after the simulation, when she was out of it, in her head, that Tobias would have never grabbed her right arm because he knew that it was hurt. So that's how she was able to get out of the simulation, because she knew it was a fake Tobias. Sorry. So this frustrates Janine, that she can't keep her in an effective simulation, so she decides that she was going to kill her early. She was going to kill her in 2 weeks, but she decides to kill her the next day. While she's there, she finds that Caleb is a traitor. Peter is there working with Janine, and Tobias comes and says to her, "If you die, I die too." The day that Janine is going to kill Triss, Peter puts a purple dye in the paralyzed serum to make it look like the death serum, and gives it to her. She is paralyzed for a minute, so this makes Janine think that she's dead. This also gives Peter enough time to get Tobias out of his cell and to help them escape. During their escape, they find this big building with some stairs, so they hide under the stairs to hide from the erudite, and while they're under there, Peter says that he helped her and saved her because he didn't want to be in debt to a stiff, which is a abnegation. So Peter's personality is whoever can give him the most in life, he's going to go to them. But then after they don't give him the most in life, he's going to go to somebody else. He doesn't work for anybody. He just goes wherever he wants to. So finally, they escape, go to the abnegation compound where they all reunite and plan their attack on erudite with the Factionless. While they're at abnegation, Marcus confronts Triss to tell her that if they continue with this attack, they will destroy some very important information that he needs. Triss has a difficult time with this because she doesn't know if she can trust Marcus, so she has to decide whether or not she's going to go with Tobias and help them fight, or if she's going to trust Marcus, who Tobias hates. This could ruin her relationship with Tobias, or she could help Marcus, or she could help Tobias with the attack. She decides to trust and help Marcus. When she was leading the attack and trying to help Marcus with the information, she says to herself, at least she still hates him while she's helping him. So she doesn't like him, she still hates him. So this eases her conscience of she won't have such a hard time with Tobias after. Christina decides to go to help them with anything that they might need, and she thought they might need another member. 3 days before the attack, Christina, Marcus, and Triss go to the Amity to find the rest of the good erudite and ask them to help them to acquire this information. One of the girls that are amongst the erudite is Will's sister. They all agree to go to help them get inside the erudite compound. They get inside, but they lose a member on the way. Eventually, they get down to just Marcus and Triss. They are supposed to go up to the lab or to Janine's office, which are on the same hallway. So Marcus goes into the door with the lab, and Triss goes into the door with Janine's office. They don't know this, but you find that out later in the book. Once Triss steps into the door, she is faced with a simulation where she has to fight herself. Eventually she does, and enters the door to Janine's office, where she finds Tori with Janine. Tori is absolutely furious with her and is about to kill her, but Triss needs the information that Janine has on her computer, and she needs Janine to get it for her. So she tries to get Tori to not kill her, but Tori takes this as she is a traitor and almost kills her, but then she is standing there with her, and Tobias and Uriah walk in the room with Marcus. This also makes Tobias think that she is a traitor, but she tries to explain to them that she was just trying to get some information that they were going to destroy but no one believes her. So Uriah leads her downstairs with the other erudite where Christina is and several of the other good erudite are. On the way down, Evelyn asks Uriah for his gun, so this makes Triss kind of skeptical of what might she be planning next. Eventually they find out that the Factionless use the Dauntless to fight with them, and several minutes later Tobias comes back down with Marcus and Caleb and comes up to Triss and says, "You were right." He plays a video on a big screen that basically says that the Divergents were meant to keep the society together, and they are good people. They are meant to be there because they have a specific purpose in the society. Once the video ends, I'm not joking, the last sentence was, "And then the shouting begins." I have no idea what happens after that because I have not gotten the last book yet. I'm super excited to figure out what happens, but I was quite annoyed that I didn't have the next book. And that is the end of Insurgent. I know this was a long speech, but there was a lot to cover and a lot to talk about, and believe me, this is a summary of it. I did skip over several parts that were not important unless you read the book. So these are just some of the more important parts and events that happened in the book. So this is my 35th speech. I hope you enjoyed it, and I hope you have a wonderful day.